And every single time I've tried to do it privately, there have been briefings and leakings and planting of stories against me and my wife. You know, the family motto is never complain, never explain. The correspondent. And that correspondent will literally be spoon-fed information and write the story. And then at the bottom of it, they will say that they've reached out to Buckingham Palace for comment.
Shockwaves are rippling through the royal family as Prince Harry finds himself at the center of a bombshell scandal. Whispers from palace corridors suggest he may have leaked a private story about King Charles to the press. And if true, the consequences could be explosive. Is this a calculated move, in a long-running feud, or something far more personal? Behind the headlines lies a tangled web of loyalty, betrayal, and buried resentment. So, could this be the moment that changes everything between father and son? The truth is more shocking than fiction. Who's really talking? Breaking news has lit up royal watchers' circles once again, and this time, all eyes are on Prince Harry. Rumors are swirling that he might have been caught leaking yet another personal story about his father, King Charles, to the press. The spotlight? A headline-making article from People magazine titled "Prince Harry's Fight for His Future," a piece that hints at a deepening divide between father and son. The problem? It's not just what was said, but how it was said, and by whom. The story, published in April 2025, is packed with quotes from unnamed sources close to the situation, who claim Prince Harry and King Charles remain distant. One source even insists there's been no rapprochement, while another says Harry's letters and phone calls to his father are going unanswered. The article goes on to claim that Harry didn't even know King Charles was hospitalized on March 27th until he saw it in the media. Now, how would anyone know that? Unless it came directly from Harry himself. It raises a burning question. Who exactly are these sources? Because here's the twist. Prince Harry has been portrayed in recent reports as being somewhat cut off from the social world in Montecito, California. Week after week, we're told he's isolated, longing for a return to the UK, missing old friends, and not leading the most vibrant social life in the States. So, how is it that friends close to Harry are constantly leaking private, detailed information about his most sensitive royal interactions? It's either that he has friends who talk to the press regularly, or he doesn't. Both can't be true. And this isn't the first time People magazine has published something that raises eyebrows. Let's rewind to September 11th, 2024. In a birthday feature, the magazine quoted Harry as saying via a spokesperson, "The best gift I've ever been given is without a doubt, my kids." That statement seemed sweet until the original version of the article surfaced. It revealed that People didn't get that quote from a rep. They got it directly from Harry, through an exclusive email. That revelation shattered the illusion of anonymity and showed a direct communication pipeline between Harry and the publication, which brings us back to the latest article. Suppose Harry has previously used direct email to send quotes to People. How likely is it that these anonymous sources discussing his rocky relationship with King Charles are really just friends? Is it possible instead that he's once again reaching out himself, perhaps to influence public opinion subtly or to send a message to the palace? There's another layer to consider: timing. Just days before the People article dropped, Prince Harry had wrapped up a 2-day appeal regarding his UK security case. In that legal battle, he argued that King Charles had the power to intervene and restore his protection. The palace denied it, firmly, explaining that UK royal security decisions are handled not by the king, but by an independent committee known as the Royal and VIP Executive Committee. Still, the idea lingers. Could this leak be Harry's way of nudging the king to act? Could he be using public pressure in the form of carefully placed stories to try and sway a royal hand? People magazine may not just be reporting royal news. They might be receiving it straight from the source. But what if this leak was a strategic move to pressure the king, straight from Harry himself. Stay glued to your screen as we take you through the royal ripple effect. When leaks aren't just rumors, and that's where things get interesting. If we entertain the idea that Prince Harry might be more involved in these so-called anonymous leaks than he lets on, then one incident from September 2024 stands out like a beacon in the fog. It wasn't speculation. It wasn't a rumor whispered through royal corridors. It was printed, time-stamped, and published for the world to see. On September 11, 2024, People magazine ran a warm, family-focused article about Harry in the lead-up to his 40th birthday. It painted a glowing image of him as a doting father, quoting him as saying, "The best gift I've ever been given is without a doubt my kids." But what initially seemed like a heartfelt statement passed on by a publicist turned out to be much more direct. That quote wasn't filtered through public relations channels or whispered by a friend. It came straight from Harry himself, in an exclusive email to the magazine. Yes, email. That one detail completely reshaped the narrative. If he emailed people back then to offer a personal statement, what's stopping him from doing it again, especially now, when the stakes are even higher? It wasn't just a casual comment about his children. It was a deliberate communication, crafted and delivered by Harry, and printed under the guise of exclusivity. The article was later edited to reframe the message as coming from a spokesperson, but by then, the original version had already made its rounds, and the damage, or perhaps the intent, was done. This is crucial context because it proves there's a pattern. Not just once, not through friends, not through vague sources, but directly. If Harry was willing to email a publication like People in 2024 about his personal life, then it's not a stretch to believe he, or someone speaking at his request, may be behind the recent story about his fractured relationship with King Charles. The timing is just too convenient to ignore. Consider this. Harry's renewed legal fight to regain his UK security detail had just wrapped up in early April 2025. He had argued passionately that his safety and the safety of his family were at risk during visits to the UK. In those legal filings, he implied that King Charles could help, if only he chose to. But the palace pushed back, pointing out that such decisions fall under the jurisdiction of the Royal and VIP Executive Committee, not the King. So, when this new People article appeared shortly afterward, detailing how sources claim King Charles hasn't responded to Harry's calls or letters, it began to look less like a coincidence and more like a strategy. The article didn't just talk about emotional distance, it highlighted specific details. Harry only finding out about his father's hospitalization on March 27th through the press, and his inability to meet King Charles during 3 separate UK visits. Who else would have access to that kind of personal itinerary? Not to mention, these aren't harmless tidbits. They're emotional, pointed details, ones that would stir public sympathy and, perhaps more importantly, public pressure. And that's exactly where things start to feel orchestrated. Because if these aren't leaks from friends, and if Harry has been caught emailing people before, then what exactly are we looking at this time? Pressure, or ploy, the power of publicity. To answer that, we have to dive deeper, not just into what's being said, but why it's being said. The most compelling part of this latest saga isn't the source of the leak, but the possible motive behind it. If Prince Harry did share this sensitive information with the press, either directly or indirectly, it wasn't just to vent. It may have been a move calculated with surgical precision, designed to send a message not just to the public, but straight to Buckingham Palace. Let's rewind briefly to early April 2025, when Harry made headlines over a legal appeal regarding his personal security in the UK. For context, since stepping back from royal duties in 2020, Harry lost access to publicly funded protection while in Britain. This has been a long-standing sore spot. In this latest appeal, he argued that the decision was unfair and hinted that King Charles, if he wished, could intervene and have it reinstated. But there was a catch. The royal family, through official channels, stood firm. The palace made it clear, again, that decisions about royal protection are handled by the Royal and VIP Executive Committee, a government committee, not the king himself. They essentially shut the door on the idea that Charles could swoop in and fix it. That should have been the end of it. But then came the People magazine article. Now, imagine for a moment that you're Prince Harry. You've just made a public legal argument that your father could help you, and he hasn't. You're out of legal options. What next? If you can't move the system from the inside, perhaps you turn to the court of public opinion. And that's where this gets fascinating. The People article didn't just state facts. It painted a picture of emotional abandonment. A son whose calls go unanswered. A prince who learns about his father's hospital stay through the media. A man who visits the UK 3 times without a single moment with his father. That's not just a news story. It's a public cry for acknowledgement. If these details did come from Harry, then he wasn't just telling the world his story. He may have been putting King Charles in an incredibly uncomfortable position. One where silence looks cold. One where inaction appears cruel. And perhaps that's the point. Because the narrative has shifted. It's no longer about security logistics or committee protocols. It's about a father ignoring his son. About a son being kept at arm's length from a family he once represented on the world stage. Whether true or not, it's an emotional framing designed to generate empathy, and perhaps even spark outrage. Could Harry be hoping that public sympathy will do what legal petitions couldn't? That if enough people feel for his situation, they'll pressure the monarchy into action? Or could this be a subtle ultimatum? Reinstate my protection. Give me what I believe I deserve, and maybe I'll stop airing these private family moments for the world to see. It's a risky move, but Harry's been known to play the long game. And in this particular match, he seems to be betting that public perception might be the one thing more powerful than a royal title. But what if Harry's real power play isn't in court, but in the court of public opinion? Stay tuned. It gets deeper. A history of quiet whispers. But this isn't the first time Harry's name has been tied to whispers behind palace doors. What we're seeing now might just be a familiar strategy, one that's been used before, only dressed in new headlines. Let's go back to the release of Finding Freedom in August 2020, a biography by Omid Scobie and Carolyn Durand. The book was marketed as an unauthorized deep dive into Harry and Meghan's break from royal life. It was filled with private details about conversations, feelings, personal moments that felt far too specific to be guesswork. For a while, the Sussexes kept their distance, publicly insisting they had no involvement in the project. But then came the court case. During a legal battle Meghan was involved in, court documents revealed a different truth. A senior aide testified that the Duchess of Sussex had shared talking points with the authors via email and in meetings. That bombshell forced Meghan to apologize to the court in November 2021, admitting she forgot about those interactions. Suddenly, the public had proof that the couple had quietly fed information to a supposedly neutral biographer. It was no longer just a rumor. It was written down, sworn in court, and broadcast across every major news outlet. This is where the puzzle starts to connect. If Harry and Meghan had been willing to work behind the scenes with biographers to shape the story of their departure from the royal family, why would anyone believe they've stopped now? Take a closer look at the tone and timing of these leaks. They almost always land when tension is high, or when legal battles are unfolding. Finding Freedom came out just months after the couple's royal exit became official. The recent People magazine leak dropped right after Harry's latest appeal for UK protection. There's a rhythm here, a pattern that feels less like coincidence and more like a plan. Even Omid Scobie himself tried to distance the couple from the book when questioned on television. He insisted they didn't cooperate, didn't offer off-the-record chats, and had no secret involvement. But the court documents told another story. And the public? They remembered. Because when someone says, "We had nothing to do with it," and then admits under oath they had everything to do with it, that's not just bad public relations. That's a credibility crisis. And it doesn't stop there. Social media detectives have pointed out the uncanny timing of stories and how quickly they benefit the Sussexes' side of the narrative. Whenever the couple seems cornered by the press, the palace, or public opinion, suddenly out comes a new article filled with anonymous sympathy and strategic details. So maybe what we're seeing now isn't a new game at all. Maybe it's just the next move in an old playbook. A well-tested method of shifting blame, building a case in the court of public opinion, and painting a picture that puts the Sussexes on the defensive while keeping their hands clean. The echo chamber, when the leak becomes the lie. But as the pattern of quiet whispers and anonymous sources continued to unfold, something even more concerning began to surface. What happens when the whispers aren't just convenient, but carefully crafted to distort the truth? It's one thing to feed information to a journalist. It's another to spread a story that turns out to be misleading or worse, knowingly false. And that's exactly what happened in one of the most eye-opening chapters of the Sussex saga. The Netflix docu-series, Harry and Meghan, which premiered in December 2022. In the series, a key figure was introduced, Christopher Boese, the founder of a company called Bot Sentinel. Presented as a tech expert and protector of online truth, Boese claimed there was a massive coordinated campaign to harass Harry and Meghan online. According to the show, these digital attacks were organized, hateful, and relentless. The implication? That Harry and Meghan were victims of a brutal cyber assault, something only a company like Bot Sentinel could expose. But not everyone bought the story. Twitter itself investigated Boozy's claims and found no evidence of any coordinated attack campaign. Several independent researchers and analysts flagged his methods as unreliable, with one review estimating Bot Sentinel's accuracy to be as low as 4.5%, a far cry from the 95% the company claimed. And then came the deeper twist. The so-called expert hired to prove Harry and Meghan were being unfairly attacked online had a history of doing some online attacking himself. Screenshots surfaced showing Boese trolling Prince William and Princess Kate, mocking their appearance and making sarcastic comments. In one tweet, he compared their aging to banana years, a bizarre phrase that quickly went viral for all the wrong reasons. Far from being an impartial expert, Boese was revealed to be just as involved in the online mudslinging as the trolls he claimed to expose. This wasn't just a small oversight. Netflix, a global platform, had handed him a microphone and introduced him as an authority. And yet, behind the curtain, he was part of the very thing he claimed to fight against. Even more troubling, Boese initially claimed Meghan paid him for his research, then later retracted the statement, saying it was a misquote. The damage, however, was already done. What this all adds up to is more than just sloppy fact-checking. It's a web of carefully placed stories, unreliable sources, and public narratives that seem designed to evoke sympathy while simultaneously shifting blame. The result? A media echo chamber where truth gets blurred, critics get labeled as bullies, and anyone who questions the story is seen as part of the problem. And yet, even when cracks begin to show, like in the Bot Sentinel saga, the larger narrative often continues, unbothered by the details. So if misinformation is being dressed up as truth, and critics as trolls, then we're left to ask, where do you draw the line between damage control and manipulation? And how do we separate heartfelt storytelling from strategy spin? But what if the real story isn't truth or lies, but a calculated spin to control the narrative? Don't go anywhere. When Twitter calls it like it sees it. But the public isn't blind, and nowhere is that more obvious than on Twitter, where sharp eyes and even sharper tongues waste no time in breaking down the royal drama in real time. Almost as soon as the People article hit, social media lit up. From casual royal watchers to full-on commentators, everyone seemed to be asking the same question. Is Harry trying to guilt-trip the king through the press? One user, posting under the handle at freedom_7, didn't hold back. Their tweet went viral. Harry, out of touch and whining, can't stop leaking to the media. Now even photoshopping his bald head? It was sarcasm dipped in frustration, echoing the sentiment of many who feel Harry's public image has become more about drama than dignity. Another notable reaction came from the Royal News Network at RNN_Royal News, known for its no-nonsense royal takes. Their tweet cut even deeper. Does it never occur to Harry that he might be the reason the family keeps their distance? That maybe Spare wasn't a clever move. The jab wasn't just about the content of Harry's memoir. It was about a pattern. A belief that Harry keeps burning bridges while expecting open doors. This tone has been growing louder over the past year. While the Sussexes still have devoted supporters, a noticeable shift has taken place online. More and more users are questioning the timing of their public disclosures, the contradictions between interviews and court findings, and the consistent portrayal of Harry as both victim and whistleblower. And the biggest red flag, according to the Twitterverse? Trust. Time and again, users point to one recurring theme. The Sussexes can't seem to keep things private, even when they say they want peace. He's leakier than a sieve, joked one commenter. Another chimed in, the royals don't distance themselves from Harry because he left. They distance themselves because they can't trust him not to run to the press with every family moment. Online, opinions move fast, but patterns stick, and the current pattern being called out by the public is clear. If every personal setback becomes a headline, then maybe the problem isn't the palace. Maybe the real issue is how the story keeps getting told. But what do you think? Are Harry's headlines heartfelt cries for justice or calculated leaks for sympathy? We'd like to hear your take in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.